partnership with KellerWilliams, the biggest real estate company on the globe. All of these different partnerships, they create a environment of clients in which they benefit from each other, but the clients also benefit by having access to all of these different realms. And it's creative, actually, at the top of these things when you're putting together deals and putting together companies. And it was a very collaborative sort of mindset that I had. I think with a lot of industries and business owners in general, they have a very I'm trying to say this in a good way. They have a very narrow mindset when it comes to collaborations. So we try to offer them something, right? Outside of just a real estate service. So I almost created this regimen that was completely unnatural, right? And quickly crashed, of course. But I did that. And when the show came out, comments on Instagram as well and everywhere else that it seems like I was on something. I was. Rehab and various other programs allowed me to, for the first time, take a look at my mind and sort of say, and this is something a lot of people don't do, and I think they should.
Trust to Disrupt, the podcast where visionary entrepreneurs, artists, creators, Web3 and crypto minds share visionary conversations and disruptive success stories. Hello and welcome to this next beautiful guest episode on Trust to Disrupt. I have a very, very special guest today that I'm absolutely excited about to dive into several topics. He says, I want to ruin the game in a good way. I want to disrupt it for the better. That's what he says about real estate and the whole industry. Maybe even about the world. Let's see. He's a true visionary and disruptor. Born in Denmark, he has been living in the Seaport district of downtown Manhattan for a long time, embodying the balance of hard work and enjoying life to the fullest. He transcended nightlife and grew a successful modeling career in the US to then impact and disrupt the real estate industry. This public figure has learned from the best in the business and now stands as one of the top brokers in Manhattan with an impressive track record of closing over $100 million in sales in his first year in business. The entrepreneur is also the founder of NextGen Ventures, was part of the cast of a successful Netflix show, and won Broker of the Year Award 2024. Specializing in luxury properties, new developments, and investment opportunities, the business owner caters to a diverse range of clients, including high-profile individuals such as cryptocurrency moguls, artists, and celebrities from around the world. Having built an enormous network in New York and globally, the visionary mind has now teamed up with partners across industries and countries to build a new world legacy where the old-fashioned real estate industry gets positively disrupted with modern concepts, technology, and partnerships. He says NextGen is no cookie and no cutter, and when you care to listen how he speaks about business and opportunities, you will notice that the very unique angles and hear his brilliant ideas through how he perceives the world. His personal growth over the years has allowed him to transcend the darker periods of life into power and strength in personal life as well as in business. And in his free time, this artist indulges in piano playing, going for rides on the motorbike, and taking leisurely strolls by the river. Please, everyone, a very warm welcome to Jonathan Normolle.
Thank you very much. That was a great introduction. I could not have done it better myself. Thank you so much for having me on here. I'm glad we can finally make it work. I know there was some ping pong back and forth, but I'm very happy to be here, no doubt.
Thank you so much. I do believe in divine timing, so it's going to be the best date that we could have picked.
I agree. There's more we can talk about now. We've had an interesting year over at NextGen and KellerWilliams. I'm not sure if that's something I got into with you prior, but KellerWilliams, I believe that's in Europe. They have a Europe branch as well. I'm not sure if they're in Denmark, but they might be. They're coming soon in Denmark. KellerWilliams is a great example of what you were speaking about and what I try to not change, but I try to partner up with from the real estate background, I can go a little bit on there. It's been done in a very traditional way for a very, very, very long time, which is fine, right? But when I grew up in nightlife, and I grew up here in New York City. I grew up in Denmark, but I moved here when I was 15. I had a girlfriend at the time who was a little older, and she introduced me to sort of a specific crowd of individuals in New York who either were celebrities or very high earners. And nightlife was a little overwhelming, so I tried to really just see how I could make money otherwise and utilize this network that I had. And real estate sort of stood out as something that everyone needs, right? Everyone needs a home. So it's a business that I could utilize my entire network in. But what I realized was when I came in there, it in New York, it's all about marketing and marketing who's the best and who's the most popular. And it's really all it's about. But even after I picked one of the best sort of brokerages there are, I realized that on the back end, sort of underneath the surface of it, everything was being done the same way all across the board, right? And that was everyone, which was shocking because it was being marketed as something that was extremely new and technology developed and embracing all these new ideas that it just wasn't, right? And so I tried to sort of find a way how I could, because I'm still just one person. So I knew I couldn't change the entire industry overnight and do that myself. So I tried to partner with a company that is a household name, which is KellerWilliams is. They have 260,000 agents worldwide. So it's the biggest real estate company on the globe, and they do 0.6 trillion yearly. So in competition, and that's the cool thing with KellerWilliams is compared to a lot of the other brokerages or real estate companies in New York, you wouldn't assume that they are number one just because they don't do marketing, and they don't need to, frankly. But since they don't do marketing, no one really knows that. And so I saw an opportunity to come in and utilize a very old school platform, which KellerWilliams is, but they're also a powerhouse, and they have a lot of capital, and they have a lot of business, and they have a lot of reach, unmatchable by any other company. And I realized I could take my new way of sort of doing business and marketing, add it to this powerhouse of business and structure, and create a new sort of more free flowing way of not just doing real estate, but doing business in general. And that's been really, really cool to do. It's been really cool to see where that flows. I think a lot of people have a misunderstanding what business is, and they look at it as a very numbers driven game and a very education structured game where you can only get into it if you're one specific individual and if you've taken one specific route. And that's not the case. You can actually take a much less traveled route and you'll end up with another mindset than these different routes otherwise would have created, right? And that'll give you a huge, huge edge. And it's creative, actually, at the top of these things when you're putting together deals and putting together companies. Creativity often mixed with a very data-driven mindset is a key for success there, right? So it's a form of, I guess, art, you can call it, to a certain degree, right? There's creativity in it. And that's the newest sort of partnership that we've done, and I've loved it. I'd love to see where it goes. We're very in the early stages of a lot of different stuff, so I'm happy to talk about it. But yeah, it's been great. It really has.
Thank you for opening up with such an amazing topic and putting some light into already like the overall direction and the industry that you're moving in and how you got there. So can you tell me a bit more about what you say when you say you want to ruin the game? Obviously, you say you don't want to really ruin it, but you want to make it different and better, obviously.
Sure.
And you put already the surface level of that. For everyone who's not so closely or in depth behind the scenes of real estate, maybe those people who only know, oh, real estate, maybe I want to sell a house or buy a house, but I've never really thought about how that industry really works. And your perspective and what you mean when you said, well, it's actually not only the industry that needs to change and I'm contributing to, but it's the whole way we do business from now on towards the future. Because what you said when you said you were shocked about having seen all the shiny object marketing and then looking underneath, the same thing happened across the past probably 5 to 7 years in the coaching industry. That's why I've been a lot in the last years. But it's been in every industry, I feel, more or less, that is connected to marketing in a way. Yeah. This cookie cutter stuff, right, has been, everybody has learned it more or less and has put it polished on top of everything, making it seem as if there's a lot of innovation, there's a lot of new cool things, a lot of revolution with new methodologies and approaches and whatnot. But then you flip it open and all of a sudden you're like, you're just doing the same thing that you did 20 years ago.
Yeah, it's the same.
What is it that needs to change? And what do you mean, what needs to be ruined, but like in a good way?
Sure. Specifically to real estate, and people often tell me I have to keep do one thing because I go too many different routes. So I'll keep it specifically to real estate first. But I saw that it was a lot about the agents, and it was about how can we make money and how can we do it quickly, and how can the agent be successful. And if let's say an average person, anyone on the street wanted to come and become an agent, they could take the course, the class, and they could pass a test, and then boom, you're a real estate agent. So even without having bought your own home, without having any sort of information, you can be in charge of $1 million worth of homes. And this is the probably 99% of the agents out there that have that little information. They get good at calls and they get good at reaching out, and or they'll be passed a listing by a boss. And so instead of of course, I care about me and I have to make money, but I realized, how can I make a product or a pathway for which the clients will pick me over anybody else? And the only way I can do that is by offering them something that's superior to all the other agents. Now, the service a real estate agent offers, if you're not me or KellerWilliams, are usually pretty limited. It's really, they'll find you a home and then they'll either sell it, they'll sell your home and they'll find you a home and then they'll collect a fee. You can do that now on most other, Street Easy, Zillow. There's other sites, homes.com, where you can actually execute these tasks pretty easily. What we added in was a service and costs. So through my network and these partnerships that I have in New York, and I grew over time, I tried to say, what are the fees and what are the hurdles that a buyer, for example, has to go through? And how can I make that easier? So they have to hire a legal team to take care of the contracts. Then we started hiring a legal team as a third party to help the clients. So there's no legal fee. So that's $15,000 we'll save you up front. We're the only company that do that because we pay for legal. And then you have to move. So there's a moving fee. Then we partnered with a moving company to take care of that. And we promote the moving company. So there's free moving. And then there's construction and all these different things that a buyer has to do. And we have up to 50% discounts on the construction as well. So this was something that my last company, when I had to work for someone or work for underneath a company, didn't allow me to do. So they stopped me from doing it because that would mean that every other agent out there would have to update theirs, right? And they would also have to do this. And most commissions are around 15,000. We're spending around 13,000 in savings just for the buyers, so they wouldn't be able to compete, right? And that was the main worry there, was that. And that's what we're doing here. And then on the sales side of real estate, marketing is completely gone when you're coming to marketing your home. It's looked at as a stock. And then what they do is you'll put it, and I guess a lot of companies do this, they'll put it on a Street Easy website. And this is a website where you can just post homes and people look and they purchase. And what we do is a little different, because if you're a client and you're looking to sell your home, you can just take good pictures of your home and put it on there yourself, right? There's no need for me. We try to make innovative ideas on how to market it and how to push it out. A recent one that we did was we partnered with a art gallery. And the art gallery, we had all their artists sort of come in and try to paint pictures that we had taken off the different listings that we had. And they would paint the picture. We would hang the picture in the art gallery. And then we have a partnership with Meta as well. So we would have the Meta sort of virtual eyeglasses in front of the painting that they painted. And they would be able to go through the gallery and look at this painting, which would sort of draw them into the home. And then they would put on the goggles and they'd be able to walk through the entire apartment in the gallery that we had. So we had about 20 listings in there where they could come through and have this sort of an immersive experience. And that's what we try to, that's just a couple of examples on how we're trying to change that, right? And do something extra. And this was all doable from me not having millions of money in marketing, but just by connections and offering equal opportunities to the partners on the other side, right? How can we both make money and make something that benefits our client? And those are examples of how we did that with real estate. And that's just sort of continuously evolving. We're doing really cool things with memberships now, where our clients get to be a part of memberships that offer different things depending on the price range that the client is in, but where they get trips to certain places or discounts on helicopter rides, and they get to go to certain social gatherings or networking events with similar like-minded people. So we try to offer them something, right? Outside of just a real estate service. And it's been fun. It's been fun. And we've been trying to sort of apply that to everything, right? But one thing at a time. But that's an example of it in real estate. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm having so many, like my mind pops out in all the directions already with all the examples you've given. First of all, how cool is that? Also the idea to say like, look, you can look at the painting and with the tech device, obviously, it gives you complete house tour, room tour, everything you want to see. And it's an experience.
Yeah.
Right? So what I'm hearing, what you created with the examples you've given is way more ease and taking off stress in decision making and in process, which is always great because it enhances the decision taken and the process really happening. But then also implementing a lot of experiences overall for people who are interested in, let's say, the category. I mean, in the end, it's a category if I want to buy or sell something, even if it's real estate and it's a big purchase or a big sale compared to going to the supermarket.
Yeah.
So, but that's great. And probably there's way more opportunities if you start implementing more with tech, if you start using AI, probably you do already here and there. And I mean, the possibilities are almost limitless. So where I wanted to get to is a thought. Let's see what you think about that, because what I feel what you're describing is taking the whole way of how business is done from vertical to horizontal, if you want.
Sure. Yeah, that's a good way of doing it.
Building network structures with the community approach that you have. So talk to me about this. Has that's been consciously done, or is that the result of just the sum of all of the creative ideas, or how do you feel about
that's a good question. Honestly, I think it happened just organically over time. And it was a very collaborative sort of mindset that I had. I think with a lot of industries and business owners in general, they have a very I'm trying to say this in a good way. They have a very narrow mindset when it comes to collaborations and sharing client bases, right? Where I approached it a little different. I just tried to go in and partner with as many people as I could partner with having my client at mind, right? So that was really my main goal, and everything else just sort of happened along the way. I kept meeting more people and I kept growing my network. And while that was growing, I just had that same mindset of how can I keep creating this experience for my client in a better and more efficient way, right? And I just always had that in mind. So whenever I would need to meet a new person, small little ideas would sort of pop up here and there. Or if I met a new client who was in AI, and this is a real story, Raj Corneru, who is an old client of mine, he's the CEO and founder of Core AI, the big AI company. And there, when I first met him, that was 5 years ago, maybe. So AI wasn't really a big thing back in those days. I didn't even really know what it was. When he said AI, I remember we were out touring and I was just like, oh, he's in some weird tech thing, you know? Because back then it wasn't like a public thing. It wasn't like we were all talking about AI. So now when it came out, I was like, oh shit, I gotta talk to Raj. So I spoke with him and they allowed us to use this tech that's otherwise like I think $5 million to use. And what that really helped us to do, and this isn't just real estate, this is everything, right? It helped us to, let's say, if we want to narrow down a buyer pool that searched for, an apartment that's in between 6 million or 10 million, and they like green and they like red and all these different things, it could actually narrow down the search for these people using stuff like public tax records and stuff like that. So we're doing some really, really, really cool things with AI. And all of these side businesses that whenever I meet someone or talk to someone, we try to create, yes, they're side businesses, but they ultimately go back into the client, right? Because it's going to be something that we offer out to the clients. while we can both grow our databases in real estate, you always need a home, right? Like I mentioned in the beginning. So any of these ventures ultimately sort of go back, right, into that. Um, yeah, but it just happened sort of organically, I think. It wasn't my intention was just to try to create something that was different because I knew there was a need for it. Not necessarily different, but just better, right? Because it was hard to stand out as a real estate agent. There's 90,000 real estate agents in Manhattan alone. So
Whoa.
there's a lot.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a big city, yes, still.
Yeah, it was
Sounds
a lot.
competitive.
Yeah, it was.
I'll come back to the human parts of that because that was another angle that got me curious to see like how many agents there are overall, not only at KellerWilliams, which you said is the largest in the world, but you know, if you look
Yeah.
at the whole industry, and then if you think about all of the people who maybe love this job or just want to make a living off of it, and you know, maybe do look for opportunities and potential to do it a different way or in a way that gets them more profits and more money in, which is it's a fair desire, right? I'll come to that in
For
a
sure.
second. The other thing I see, I want to come back to this, that you say you somehow build it organically because you somehow felt and perceived there was space and a desire for doing it in a different way. I
Yeah.
had somebody else on the podcast who basically comes from the other direction, building it very much on purpose in a different industry, but the concept in the end comes together as the same, which is what I'm hearing you when you speak about also the affiliate parts and the community building part, all of that, and plus the network around it is something that now is the term that is more and more emerging to the public.
Yeah.
Is a community-based economy in the end.
That's good. That's
Because
good to know.
right, you
Yeah.
give people, I don't know if you were aware that you're kind of building that.
Yeah, no, I wasn't, but that's true. Yeah.
That's what it is. And the overall purpose of those that I know a couple of people across, well, that guy is from the US, but building in Guatemala, and I know people who are building from Switzerland, but also globally.
Okay.
The concept is always the same. It's exactly what you described, right? Bring together a good network, stakeholders that can create the platform in the broadest sense. And then there can be transactions, whatever then the goods or services are that are sold or transacted or. And it works basically in a similar way that you just described. You know, in the end, everybody profits.
Yeah, it's actually interesting you're bringing this up because I had a conversation just 2 hours ago with a guy who is a very, very big financial guy here in New York, in the billions and billions. And I had a friend who wanted to set up this meeting with me and him, and I had no idea what the meeting was going to really be about. But on the side, I have another partnership with a company in Canada that we were looking at tokenizing the business and starting to run these transactions underneath a token on the blockchain. And then we ended the meeting with, why don't we, because he was sitting with all of these investments, really cool investments that you could do in music, where he buys a big portfolio in music or songs, and he works with Taylor Swift and The Weeknd and all these different people, and movies, really big names that he works with. And there was another investment that was about where you could do 10,000 and then you would own your own vineyard and stuff like that. So really cool investments all the way down to $5 basically. So what we're going to be doing is essentially creating a token underneath NextGen and probably also KellerWilliams, but with them on as well, and putting it in an app form. And this is very early ideas because this was 2 hours ago, but where you can then invest into the token at $5 if you want, and then you could be a part in these projects, either building a building in New York or a vineyard, and all these really cool investments that actually have a way higher return than a stock, right? It would be 20, 27 sometimes, also lower sometimes. But it was a very cool conversation about where people think the stock market is very, very confusing, and it can be for people to get into it. And the stock market almost covers these investments that are more direct. So people don't have access to someone who wants to create a project or wants to buy music, and they don't have access to those kinds of investments that have a bigger return. But they would if we went in and created this tokenized asset where they can go in and directly invest in these investments that we would go out and find for them, and then we would ultimately be selling those tokens also to client bases and stuff like that. So, yeah, that sounds very similar. That's cool. That's really cool.
I love that example. So thank you for sharing, everyone who's listening to this. You know, if you guys listen to these things, because I feel for a lot of people who listen, all of these things that we're discussing here on this podcast, because literally every guest I have on here is bringing in some sort of this version in their own way, in their own industry, in their own expertise. But the overall concepts and ideas are starting to lead overall in the same direction. And that is whether you call that community-based economies, because what in the end, all of this, including the tokenization processes that are going on in the world already, there's several projects, and the conceptual idea of that is amazing. And if you tie both of these together, what it creates overall, over a little bit of time, of course, but what it does, it creates complete independence for people to come into that, whether or versus the codependency that you today have to the country that you live in, to that government, to that, you know, the old system of, you have that job, you pay those insurances, you do this, you whatever it is, the whole thing around how life is supposed to be if you go back 20, 30, 40, 50, 80 years, right? And this is completely the new world, if you want, how things are run. And
it's incredible. I mean, and I was discussing this with him today too. It's a completely different world, right? And I think it's beautiful with these, but it's too bad there's always your bad guys here and there, right? That puts a bad name on the Bitcoin and the tokenization of coins, and but it is liberating in a sense, right? Because it's giving access for something that otherwise was a very closed door and that you wouldn't have access to at all. But it's also now giving you access to individuals who essentially go out and find investments for some of the richest people on the planet. So they're taking their knowledge and education and expertise in the field and giving it to the masses, right? Because there's two, and I don't mean this in any kind of condescending way, I just mean this in business terms. There's two major pools of where money is, and it's the masses and it's the elite. It's kind of quality and quantity. Now, back in the day, you could either pick one or the other, right? But now you can sort of combine both by being able to offer these investments via the tokenizations route. You can offer it to everyone. If you want to buy millions of the token, you can. If you want to buy $5, you can. So it's an incredibly liberating way to be able to invest for people who otherwise didn't have access to it, right? And I think as long as it's done right, and I will try to do it right, it will be done right. But it's going to be a way that's so much easier to understand for the average person. And, you know, you can do, let's say your expertise is hairdressing. You're a hairdresser and you want to invest. Nowadays, you would have to know about the stock market to do that. If we have, the way I see the project that we're doing is that hairdresser would be able to go on, find a hair product or a hair investment that she can apply her knowledge to, right? And then she can be successful within that. Without having any knowledge of the stock market, but applying her own knowledge to that world, to the shares, right? And I think that could be something really, really cool to do, but early stages.
it is. Last thing I'm going to say about that, because it caters in the direction. I had an artist, a singer-songwriter on the podcast as well, and she's also connected a lot to Web3 and crypto projects, etc. And she told me, which I didn't know before, there is somewhere, I think it was on Bali, there's apparently some tribe living completely off grid because they have ever since they exist, right? So people who don't have passports, who don't even know exactly when they are born, like the complete tribe life thing. And the thing of that tribe is the heritage is music. So they have certain types of music and songs that they celebrate, sing, whatever. And somebody went in there and found them and was so fascinated and excited about it and obviously asked if they were okay. So what they did, they tokenized, if you want, the music. So now they can earn for from that
Wow.
through Web3 and crypto and tokenization of their cultural music. So now the village there is as a tribe making digital money that they can now exchange for other things that they before had no access to.
That's incredible. That's
Is that
incredible.
cool?
Yeah. I mean, that's a great example of it, right? Yeah, it's honestly they're taking back power, right?
Yes.
This is what that is. I think a lot of people will have a hard time grasping that. A lot of people don't understand the power that's out there either, right? And how much they're taking advantage of. I didn't for a long time, and I've been in enough rooms now where I've seen a lot of that powerhouse stuff, and it's scary to the degree of, especially here in America. Corruption, yes, but more so just control. How much is controlled and what's not, right? Everything you see nowadays in marketing or advertisement or anything that has anything to do with anything is there for a reason. And it's pretty scary to the powers that those companies have. Yeah, it's a crazy world we live in today.
It is, and that brings me back to people. We started talking about that, and we can go back to the real estate agents, right? Whether that is the 260,000 you said at KellerWilliams, right? Or like an overall, or the 90,000 you said in Manhattan overall for different companies. So the human element in all of that, right? You are changing how people feel when they come into your world and be in this new platform that you're creating, or the new advanced way of the thing that existed anyway. Where do you feel are the limitations of the human, the average in that at the moment? What prevents people from taking the opportunities that are now arising more and more, and also the ones that you create? And coming also from the other direction where we just talked about power, do you have that from the other side? So what are potential, but also maybe limitations or threats from both ends on the human side? What needs to change or be
It's a
cracked
good
open?
question. I think there's a lot of limitations, of course. There's a ton of limitations, but I think the biggest issue that I'm seeing is funding and I guess technology limitations as well, but also the real estate industry as a whole. If I had, let's say, $50 million to go in and change a lot of different technology and develop technology and restructure the path of the real estate agent, I probably would, but I don't right now. And I don't know if it's something that I see that there's money in, because I think the real estate model as it is not going to be successful for very much longer. Once I have promoted and marketed the things that we do and cover, there won't be, and this isn't a cocky anything, it's just there wouldn't be a logical reason to go with any other company, right? If we're paying for all of these different things and our services are superior and we can sell and buy and do all the different things that anyone else can, but we're basically paying you $30,000, and that's just one of the things, right? Then the agent aspect of it, they get obsolete pretty quickly, right? Because then you're just opening and closing a door. So we are thinking in that route where what's going to happen and with AI also, right? Because the bigger companies that do have more money and can push in those technologies aspect of the industry will likely win that battle, but those strides just aren't being taken because I don't think they think that it's necessary yet. It's the same as sort of the marketing side and the what's really underneath it all. They haven't felt it was necessary to update yet. So maybe it wasn't, maybe it is. It will be now because we're gonna market and promote what we have and what we're doing. But no, I see that being the biggest issue, is probably that there's a big understanding that real estate agents also is a negative thing almost. Real estate agents scam people, or they're hustlers and they make a lot of money and they shouldn't. So there's a big resistance in people with real estate agents because, truth be told, they haven't really done a lot of good in the past. So that's a front that I am trying to change and do that, but. Yeah, I think resistance-wise, it's going to be hard for real estate agents and businesses to keep up with what technology and other companies will have to offer. in the future, right? Because that business model is so outdated that whenever there's a good AI guy that comes in and is ready to spend 50 million on it, he will take that over. I have no doubt. So I think that will happen, and that will happen rather quickly. But then it comes back to the networks and partnerships that you can offer, right? What can you offer someone? And a computer can't do that. And an AI can't do that because those are networks within a city. Comes back to the people, sort of the community, right? What can this person offer? And I think as a real estate agent, that's your safest bet if you want to safeguard yourself towards AI in the future, is make sure you have a ton of connections, make sure you can offer things and not just do a task, right? Because the AI will outperform you with the task every single time. I think a lot of people have the wrong idea with AI. They think it's going to take away their job, and it might in some cases, but I think it's a tool to make us better, right? It's a tool that we can maximize our potentials, right? I don't think it's going to be something that replaces you, at least not yet. I don't know what your opinion on that is, but I think so, at least.
Yeah, thank you for opening this up also and putting your perspective and your expertise in this conversation, because I have no idea how real estate agents tick, because I've never been in the industry. So that was interesting to hear and to see these perspectives. What I do agree upon is two things, and I want to add something. I agree to what you say about AI. I don't think it's a threat. We just need to not be afraid of it and interact with it and understand it and then use it for the better. I agree. To me, there's more potential than there's threat.
Yeah.
It needs to be taken care of. So just overall, I feel there's a lot, way more potential than there is threat. Yes, it's going to change a lot of things. And that is the other point. A couple of days ago, I was at a workshop here locally in Düsseldorf that was all about AI and just sharing a few things and perspectives and, helping people to connect to this kind of a new thing in commerce, and take down the barriers of interaction. And another conversation I had, and we ended with the idea that came from this knowing that AI will replace a lot of things.
Yeah.
It just will, full stop. It's nothing that we need to debate. It is really. And which leads to another requirement that scares a lot of people, which at the same time is a huge opportunity, which was a statement that another conversation ended in that went like, in the nearer future, every person will have to become either like a freelancer or an entrepreneur in some sort of way, where you interact in different activities that generate money or income streams one way or the other, whether that is through tokenization, whether that is a task or job, whatever we want to call that then, where you're still in the time against money thing. Maybe that's 20 hours of your week, I don't know. But then you have 2, 3, 4 other things that you also set up or that you do or that you interact with, right? That will somehow take care of either financial streams in exchange, because we'll be having currencies for a little while. I feel that's personal opinion. And also because the landscape is changing as what you say, what you are building. And I want to dive into that a little bit deeper because I'm curious what else you can share. So it sounds like there's so many cool things coming. But these things, these community-based economies will also provide a share of the things that today we need to pay money for. The deals and the exchanges are just in a different way. So a part of the necessity for financial resources for the single individual may change a little bit. Still, the way that we can receive it will also change. And this idea of freelancing or entrepreneurship for basically everyone, right? That is an idea or concept that I feel we need to embrace, but a lot of people resist. So, right?
They do. That's a great.
If you have an opinion on that, feel free to say. Otherwise, please share what else you can share about projects that might be coming out of this KellerWilliams collaboration that you're having, because I love that topic.
Sure. Yeah. I think first of all, what you're saying is completely true. I believe almost if you take it like back in the day, let's say, when they had knights and kings and all that other stuff, everyone was kind of an entrepreneur. You had either like a farm, or you had like a little shop, or you were a blacksmith, and whatever you sort of work, but you were working for yourself, unless you were working in the castle, right? So I think that's where we're heading. Hopefully, I think that's cool, like where everyone can sort of, you start your own thing and you make your own money, and I guess if you want to work at the castle, you can work at the castle, but that's the corporate way, right? No, I think that's awesome, but I hope it takes that route, and I think it has to, right? Because the corporate institutions and those bigger jobs, like you were saying, they're going to be the smaller jobs, they're going to be obsolete, right? They're not going to be there. So these castles, so to speak, aren't really going to need that much of a workforce anymore. So I think we have to do that, right? So hopefully schools and coaches and whatever else will start teaching that more and more, because you can make money nowadays just on your computer, very, very easily, actually. Maybe not. No, you can make millions and billions if you want to, right? But you can also make 20,000 a month, or 10,000 a month, or 5,000. There's really a lot of levels to it. But that's a super interesting topic. Yeah, it's a whole podcast on its own. But yeah, back to the KellerWilliams and the podcast, or no, the partnership that we're doing. It was a long time in the making. I had to fly out to Texas a lot for this partnership with KellerWilliams. Their headquarters is in Texas, and Gary Keller is in Texas, who's the owner of KellerWilliams. So I was flying out there a lot in the summertime, meeting with him. He is a really, really he's a great individual. He's a character, no doubt about it. He is one of the biggest real estate moguls on the planet, right? So we had some really, really cool conversations. There was just a different kind of air that these kind of people breathe. And it was very inspiring. I went there about 3 times, I think. And we had some good conversations, and he had some ideas for me and some structures for me on what I wanted to do and what I was trying to do. And I came to him with this idea to see if it was something that he was open to do, and it was. So basically, how we are planning on going forward with it is that real estate isn't just real estate. We're planning on taking a lot of different realms with it. Basically, like what you were saying, sort of the flatline and the community aspect is, it's one circle of services, and it's one circle of shared clients. So real estate, yes, we do, but it goes back to having these different partnerships. We're now also going to be doing financing. There's some fashion companies that we're going to partner with. There's watch companies that we partner with. And all of these different partnerships, they create a environment of clients in which they benefit from each other, right? But the clients also benefit by having access to all of these different realms and these different services. So they don't have to go shopping and go do all these different things in other realms. So it's sort of like a mini ecosystem of a one-stop shop, if you want to say. And it allows the clients to be a part of a world that they otherwise would not be able to be a part of. And then it allows everyone to share sort of the profit and keep, instead of competing against each other, they keep that same idea in mind of how can we make this partnership and process better and better and better and better, all of us, right? And it's sort of a mastermind between a lot of different industries that we are creating in that network. What we're then also creating is a app and a membership version of that that's going to be for clients, the individual person. You can sort of join on this app. This year, looking at probably a year or 2 out, but early editions of it will be done this year, where one part of it will be the aspect that I spoke about today, where you have access to certain investments, just like your Robinhood, basically, an investment app, but for direct investments, where you can do this token, but then you can be a part of a fashion brand, or you can be a part of something more in depth instead of just a stock. You're a shareholder. But you can also be a part of a networking series. Let's say if you're there on this app and you're here to grow your network, or you're looking for funding, there will be access to a certain client base that are looking to invest. So it'll be organized in that way, where you can go on really from any business and from any realm and get, if you're looking for funding, or if you're looking for a network that's able to help you on this, So it's very detailed in that realm, but it's not, because it really goes back to the basics of if you were in a room full of entrepreneurs and you put your hand up and said, is there anyone that can help me with this? Right. And someone came to you and was able to help you, and there's a transaction fee in between. That's sort of what this is, just with the clients in mind, that we're trying to do something that's always going to be the best thing for the client. That's the really sort of exciting, huge project that we're doing. But what we're doing to market it and promote it is we have talks of a docu-series in the works, and that hasn't been publicly released yet. So I'm talking about it here, which is okay to do. But we are going to be releasing a press release in the next coming weeks about it. What we're going to be doing is not a reality show, just because the reality shows are not the best way to promote things, because you're not sure about how it's going to be promoted or shown, because it's cut and it's scripted, right? But what we did here is we partnered up with a production company that allowed us to just keep 51% of the shares in the production. And what that allowed us to do was, instead of creating a narrative, we basically are just going to be showing you sort of a day in the life of all these different things, and opening the door to individuals and companies of a very high stature that for the first time are willing to be on this, because we control how it's being marketed and how it's being promoted. So they're not shying away this time, where reality TV nowadays, there's usually not the best individuals, because it has to be individuals who are okay with likely being painted in a bad way. So that's usually why it turns out like that, and that's why these business opportunities, partnerships, and people have shied away from it before, but they aren't here. So we're looking forward to doing that. It's going to be very cool.
For a second, because as you're talking
Sure.
about the productions, right? Obviously, those who know you've been in one of these concepts, in one of these formats, right? And there's a reason you're setting it up right now. So has this been a learning through that, a realization, or was that the idea that you had previously anyways, but it was just not possible to conduct it that way?
It was not the purpose. When I did a Netflix show, Owning Manhattan, and that was not the purpose. My purpose in Owning Manhattan, to be fully honest, was to make a lot of noise. Was to try to get my foot in the door and play what I needed to do to get a lot of attention, and it worked. So that worked, right? But now I need yeah. But now I need to reel it back a little bit. I need to showcase the real me and put that on display a little bit. So I think, no, it was not my intention at the beginning, but it is now. It is now. But that was a learning curve, no doubt.
Cool. Thank you for being very honest on that.
No,
and to
of
be
course.
honest, if we hadn't been on there, we wouldn't be speaking, because that's how I found you.
Exactly. So I gotta say, it helped me a lot. It opened a ton of doors, and even everything I've spoken about today is somewhat an effect of that, right? Especially when it comes to the international markets and the masses. That was something I didn't have access to before. So it's helped a ton.
And those, I want to say that whatever everyone else who's listening thinks about it, I want to say, since I saw the show, and obviously I didn't know anyone on that, just a friend of mine slipped me the link and said, hey, maybe you enjoy that show. So I started watching it last year. And the reason why I started to follow along with you, and I think I started sending you messages on Instagram through your stories, when you shared stuff that I resonated with.
Yeah.
When I saw that, I'm like, okay, there's more to the guy.
Yeah.
So
I'm happy you saw that.
I didn't know you, but I saw, I'm like, okay, there is whatever it is, but there's more, and that made me curious. And so I started to listen to what you're actually saying, and that's how we started the conversation in the end, right? So yeah, that's just what I wanted to add to that.
I'm glad. I think a lot of a lot of people, and I gotta say, it's in the beginning it was a little much with people reaching out, but I think a lot of businesses that reached out when they first got on a call with me were very surprised because they came in expecting something very different, and I'm trying to now really just be myself and be open and showcase that side, right? I think a lot of the shame that is with the marketing and social media today is that you're not really portraying yourself. A lot of people aren't. You know, they're really putting on a show, and it hurts the business side of it. What I realized was, if I'm being myself online or social media or on this the future endeavor that we're doing, then when people meet me in real life, they're not disappointed, they're not anything. It's actually a good thing, right? I'm usually they can almost relate to me right away because they've seen some of me online. So they almost have an idea of who I am because I've been honest and I've been open. Where in the past, where I wasn't, or if I thought about too much what I was sharing and it sounded too marketing and too marketed it, then it almost had an opposite effect to where people would meet you in person and have a totally different idea of what they were coming into, right? So yeah, when that's, at least that's an advice I have for anyone out there that's trying to share or grow social media, is be yourself to the fullest. Like that's also the only way you'll stick out from anybody else, right? That's by being yourself. No one else is doing what you are doing because you're you, right? So I think that's the biggest sort of misconception, is that you need to follow some sort of model or a specific mindset to be social media famous and all these other things, and you don't. You just got to be you and work hard at it. And I think that's a huge, being yourself, if you can, takes a while and it takes a long time to figure out who you are as a person, but once you can, definitely do that. Yeah.
Thank you for that advice, especially when it's comments or guys, right? This is not coming from anyone who saw that online and is just repeating it, but it is from
Yeah,
someone who has had the experience of it and grew through it. So that I can
exactly.
feel that it comes from your heart or soul or whatever you want to call that, but it comes
It
really from
does.
you and you mean it. So that gives it a lot of value. Appreciate you sharing that.
Sure.
So last question on that, and then I would love to hear if you can already release when the documentation is going to come out. Was it very hard, or what helped you in the beginning when the noise started to cope with it, deal with it? And I don't know,
Sure.
was there something in particular, any tip that you can give anyone listening or watching?
Yeah, I think, and again, I'll be very honest here. I don't have a shame in it. When I first came to New York, I was in nightlife, right? So I was in the nightlife industry, and I was around a lot of celebrities, and I was around a lot of partying and stuff like that. And that was all great, and it was very glamorous and fabulous, and you're around celebrities, and it all sounds amazing. But there's also a dark side to that. There was a lot of drugs and alcohol and stuff like that. And I think I moved here when I was 15. Yeah, 15. So that was on my own, right? And this girlfriend that I had who was older. So I was here and sort of living life very freely at that point. And it quickly became a solution of that's how I was dealing with things. It was sort of either partying or letting my emotions not really out or dealing with them. I was trying to solve it some other way that was either substitutional or really not dealing with it. And then when I came into business, I had this very rigid mindset that, I'm up at 4 a.m. and how can I push and be better and push and push and push. And I wouldn't do, Christmas, I wouldn't do New Year's, I wouldn't do weekends, I wouldn't do anything. I would just push and push and push and try to make money. And that's often also what's pushed online is, you need to like grind and grind and grind. And you do, yes, but it does bring a burnout, right? So I try to say, how can I not be tired anymore? Is that by taking a supplement that makes me more energetic, or taking something that brings me down? Or so I almost created this regimen that was completely unnatural, right? And quickly crashed, of course, but I did that. And when the show came out, I think, and I had been taking those supplements throughout the entire show, also. So if I act a little different on there, that probably is also why. And a lot of people have told me this, and there's comments on Instagram as well and everywhere else, that it seems like I was on something. I was, so I'm not too shy about that. But there, there's a time and a place where I went to rehab. I actually went to rehab almost 5 times. But for me, it was an incredible opportunity to look and deal with my mental state. Instead of, I'm big on working out. I go to the gym every day and I grow my muscles and I grow my body, right? But I never thought about growing my brain and my thought process and how I deal with things. rehab and various other programs allowed me to, for the first time, take a look at my mind and sort of say, and this is something a lot of people don't do, and I think they should, was sort of, how do I deal with things and problems? And it allowed me to recognize thought patterns and different ideas in my head that likely weren't good or healthy ideas. And it was sort of practicing being able to recognize whenever those thoughts are there. How can you stop it? What can you do to be better at those things? And sort of taking a personal inventory of how you can be better, right? And how you can be more healthy mentally. And just like you do in a business, you're very honest about what's going on, how can we do things better on a spreadsheet, right? And where we're lacking, what can we do better? If you can be that honest with yourself, then you will become extremely better at your own sort of personal inner self, because you can honestly take a look and say, am I lying here? Was I a bad guy there? Or can I do this better? Can I fix that better? Can I react better to a certain thing? So that allowed me to really grow. But it did, I will say, the show probably fueled my party stuff a little more, and I needed to just be knocked down of that. So I disappeared. I was sort of off the grid for 2 months, and then I had some business in Dubai. So I went there for a little bit and came back. And that has been probably the biggest sort of awakening that I've had outside of, not even outside, as a whole, I think, is that I'm not just me. I'm not just who I am. You can actually grow mentally, right? You can expand even further. And that's been incredible. It really has. Because I always thought, you just are who you are, and that's just it. But you can actually grow. You can expand that, which has been incredible.
Thank you so much for being so open and
Yeah, of
also
course.
so vulnerable. That is something that takes courage, and not everyone has the grit and the courage to do so, to share
I
publicly.
appreciate it.
And yeah, I can feel the sincerity and I can feel the honesty in your words. And that is congratulations, because I know what these journeys are like from own
I
experience.
appreciate it. I appreciate it.
It's not easy. It's simple, but it's not easy.
That's
But it's
true.
so worth going. And it is amazing to see how we can grow, not only mentally, but emotionally, spiritually. It's the whole capacity expansion as a human being, and
I
what we
agree.
can achieve when we allow and when we do not let ourselves stop ourselves because of fear or judgment or whatever else it is that we
Yep.
have going on. So, and there's a lot of things that you can do, and everyone needs to find their own way in that. So thank you for sharing that. It's very much appreciated. So is there a launch date yet for the documental show coming through?
Yeah, so I can say this. In about 3 months, we are going to be releasing more information. But in about 3 months, we start. So that's when we start. So you're probably looking at a year or so. But what we will be doing in the meantime is the YouTube channel. My entire social media outlet actually will be taken over by a Swedish company that we just partnered up with. They're fantastic. I love those guys. And we're trying to, again, you're here in Canada and Sweden, but we're trying to do sort of a little bit of everywhere and everyone to just create something really cool. And they're taking over that realm. So there'll be a whole influx of content and sort of a day-to-day of everything we're doing. So, but we start in about 3 months, and you guys will be some of the first to know. I'll be sure to let you know.
Amazing. And we'll have links to follow you on your Instagram, and from there people can find everything else, right? The YouTube already exists, but obviously the
Correct.
content is not on yet. But for everyone who's already gotten excited by everything that you share and wants to follow along to not miss anything, go. Basically, Instagram is the best place to start for you, right?
Yep, that's correct.
Yeah, we'll have the link here so you can find him easily, or you just Google the name. That should pop up as well. Amazing. Looking at time,
Yep.
we're on the hour. It's amazing.
We are.
I have 3 questions I ask every guest at the very end. It's just first impulse that comes out, 1 sentence, 2 sentences, whatever you want to say. Are you good for that?
Sure, let's do it.
Right. The first one is just relating to the podcast name. It's called Trust to Disrupt. What does that term mean to you?
A changing world, a better and changing world, maybe. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any name that pops into your mind, who else would you love to listen to on this podcast?
I would love to listen to Gary Keller.
Oh, cool. Maybe we need to talk about how to bring him on.
Exactly.
All right. And the last one, I mean, you've given a lot of advice already, but maybe there is something else, your best advice or an impulse to every person who's a bit more of a visionary, loves to deal with futuristic things, has innovative ideas. Is there any advice or tip that you can give such an individual?
Yeah, I think one of the big realizations I had as an entrepreneur was that everything is doable. I always thought these big corporations and these big companies was something that was impossible to do. But after meeting these individuals and being part of these meetings, I realized that they were once also just the entrepreneur. And they just met up with someone who was really good at doing this and this and this and gathered this company together. So if I have a quick advice for anyone, it would be that anything is possible, and you just have to get started. Getting started is the biggest step, showing up. Yeah.
Amazing. That's a great tip, because that's where so many people get stuck by not making the move. That's great advice. Thank you, Jonathan. So, and for everyone, I hope you enjoyed this episode here. Go and look him up, find him on Instagram, follow along. There's so many cool things coming. I know there's a few other things that you potentially could not talk about yet, but I know from previous conversations, there's so many things. Again, this is New World. This is NextGen. So definitely it was such a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Likewise. Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me.
Thanks for listening. I hope you really feel inspired and you gain new perspectives for your own ventures to take action. Remember to subscribe to the podcast, download the episode, and share it with one visionary person who needs to also hear this. Also, please leave a 5-star review if that feels aligned on iTunes or on Spotify. That helps to distribute the podcast to more people and to have high caliber guests on for you to enjoy.